Hey everybody, it's Question Mark, and we're back today, sponsored by Truckit. Truckit is your on-demand delivery app, and they will help you get things that you need either home or somewhere else, and you don't have a big enough vehicle to do that. They can also haul things off for you, and it's very helpful. So with that, don't forget to click that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. Again, I'm Question Mark, and I am uncut and uncensored, so I don't go off of a script. I just talk about what my topic is today. And so today the thing is perspective. Perspective is how we see things. Doesn't necessarily mean it's correct, it's just how we see them. We may see something, a situation, and we may think it was, an awful situation, but maybe it was something that was getting to a better situation, or somebody tells you something and you didn't quite understand it, so your perspective was off. We get that a lot through emails and texts, because you can't really put the emotion or the fluctuation of your voice or anything in there, and a lot of times texts get misconstrued, emails get misunderstood because you have a perspective. Now, where does your perspective come from? Your perspective comes from what you've been through in your life, your experiences, your knowledge of even the other person that's sending you that text, or who you're watching, or whatever. Perspective is a form of judgment, right? I know we're not supposed to judge, but if you say you don't judge, you're a liar. We all judge. Okay, so judgment is sometimes to protect ourselves, sometimes to help somebody else change what they're doing. So we do have to judge. Now, I know there's a lot of Christians out there that says, well, the Bible says thou shalt not judge. It was talking about don't judge their relationship with God, don't judge their being saved, or their path, or whatever. You're not supposed to do that. But as far as judging, I think we're supposed to judge. At least that's my thought. If I see somebody pull out a gun in a grocery store, I think I should judge that guy that he's going to rob that grocery store. So, that's the judgment is not always a bad thing. It's a protective thing as well. So perspective, though, can really affect you and people around you by how you see things, how they see things. It can cause arguments, it can cause strife, but it can also save you. It can also help others. Your perspective on them might help them see things differently and encourage them to do better. So your perspective is very important. Now, when I do like leadership seminars, or I teach my leadership class at the martial arts school, or I do a business seminar for managers or management owners, and that to get along and understand their employees and vice versa, I tell a story. And I got this story from a friend of mine who's a pastor, and it's a really interesting way to look at things. And now I don't want all the women to get mad at me out there, because this is part of this was actually history. People did this, but it's, and we need to learn from history. So if we don't learn from it, we're going to repeat it. But this story is about a dowry. And a dowry, if you're not familiar with that, is where a man would come to the father of a girl and offer him things in order to marry the girl. Okay, that was a dowry. Now, this certain man had a few daughters, and the first daughter, guy came in and offers a dowry, of like a couple of goats and a chicken, and so he gets to marry the daughter. The next daughter, she's in line to get married, and it was really important back then for the girls to get married. They did not feel like they were not complete if they weren't married. So it was important to the girls as well to get married. So the next daughter, she's in line, and the next guy that comes along, he's a little bit more wealthy, and he offers a cow and some goats and a few more items, and so he gets to marry the second daughter. Well, the youngest daughter was not quite what men were looking for at that time for some reason. They didn't find her appealing. She was the last daughter, so she was the one doing all the chores. So she was always dirty. Her clothes were always messed up because she was feeding those chickens and cows and goats that the other girls' dowry brought in. So she was never really well kept because of that. And the father was afraid that she was never going to get married. And that it would be a bad thing on the family that she was never married, and so one day this guy comes along and he's a very, very wealthy person, and he sees the daughter and he offers a dowry, and he offered 8 cows. Now, if you think about that, 8 cows would be like giving this guy mansions and land, and it was very valuable. And so he offers 8 cows for the youngest daughter, and the father was like very confused. He was like, well, wait, are you talking about this daughter? My other daughters are already married. And he's like, yeah, I want that daughter. And this guy was very well known. He was very wealthy, very respected. And so the father was like, well, yeah, sure. And so he marries the girl, and he takes her home to his palace, and everybody around the area was just like, okay, who's this idiot that paid 8 cows for this guy's dirty daughter? I mean, who is this guy? Who was that? And so after a while, word got around about him paying 8 cows for this girl, and so he finally invites a bunch of these people that were questioning him in. And while they're sitting there, this very beautiful girl is serving them and pouring their drinks and making sure that their food is kept up and everything else. And so they're all talking and being polite until finally one of the guests says, okay, you know what we're here for? We're here to see this dirty girl, this farmhand that you paid 8 cows for. That's what we want. And he goes, well, you've already seen her. And they're like, no, we haven't. Where is she? And he goes, she's been serving you this whole time. And they were like, no. We want to see the one that you paid 8 cows. We want to see the ugly girl. We want to see the dirty girl. And he's like, no, that's her. The beautiful girl serving you is the woman I married. And they were all just in shock. And he said, he goes, I valued her so much because I had seen her and I saw her work ethic and all of this. And so he took this girl that everybody thought was worthless, and he put the value of 8 cows, which, like I said, women, don't get mad at me. That's not my thing. It was back in the day when dowries were done. And so he put that value on her, and that made her change. His perspective on her made her change. She decided, wow, I'm worth that much. My 2 sisters, who everybody thought were great, they didn't bring near that in a dowry. And so she started feeling like, hey, if he thinks I'm worth it, he's my husband, I must be worth it. And so when we put our perspective on people, we should do that. We should make them feel like they're worth more than what they feel like they're worth, or what maybe people around them feel like they're worth. My wife always tells me that I see more potential in people than they see in themselves. When I'm teaching the martial arts, I'm always encouraging people. I'm letting them know that, hey, you can do this. It's not out of your reach. And I work really hard to make sure that they start seeing that they can make these accomplishments. We do little things at a time to get them to do better at their techniques, and then pretty soon they're feeling pretty confident. And then when they start feeling like that, then I have them show somebody else a technique, and then that makes them go, wow, I do have this. I can show somebody else. And so she's always saying that I always see more potential in people than they see in themselves. And that's exactly what this story is. He saw so much potential in this young bride that she didn't see, her dad didn't see, the town people didn't see. They had no idea that she was actually a beautiful, poised girl. Well, this guy saw that and brought it out in her. And so it's funny when I do these seminars, I have people coming back and telling me that in their break room they have a sign that says, how many cows are you worth? So it's kind of funny that they take the story, and again, this wasn't my story. I heard it from somebody else, but I put it into the perspective line the way I did. It's a little bit different, but it's just like you've all heard about somebody that finds a $100 bill in the toilet, and it's, filled with feces and all of that, but they'll take that $100 bill out because even though it's covered in crap, it's still $100. They'll wash it off and use it, right? So it doesn't matter what you've been through. You can wrinkle that $100 bill up, you can step on it, you can smear it through dog crap, and guess what? It's still worth $100. And so sometimes when we let other people's perspective damage us, it's like being crumpled up, stepped on, and smeared with dog crap, right? Well, that's other people's perspective. You're still worth what you're worth. You still have an innate value, and you need to realize that and not let anybody take that from you. So perspective is very powerful. It can bring out the best, and sometimes it can bring out the worst. But if we honestly feel that people are good and they have value, and we honestly feel that they can do incredible things, then they will, right? They will do that. And like I said, perspective is kind of a judgment, right? We judge people from our experience. That's where our perspective comes from, is our experience. And so it's important when you do judge people, because you do, and if you say you don't, you're lying. It's a fact. We all judge. I mean, we can walk down the street and see somebody doing something, and instantly an idea pops in our head. It's like, oh, you know what? I bet they're doing this, or man, why are they doing that? Or we instantly judge, and it doesn't matter who you are. You could be you could be the best person. Everybody thinks about you. You're great. You're the kindest person, whatever. But you still judge. We all do. And it's just, we need to catch ourselves when we judge, and we need to look at our experience and go, okay, well, maybe they didn't have that experience, so maybe I'm projecting onto them what my experience was, and that's not what's going on, right? So perspective is a judgment, and like I said, we all judge. Now, there are things that, how do I say this, in like relationships where one person does something and the other person's perspective is that it was either rude or uncaring or whatever, but in reality, it wasn't any of that. It was an innocent statement or question or anything, and it can be misconstrued because of that person's perspective, and your perspective was, well, I didn't mean anything bad by it, but they really got upset. Okay, so when we talk about perspective in relationships, I heard a story a long time ago, and I can't remember where I heard it, because I've done lots of seminars with lots of other people, and it could have been Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, Marshall Silver, Dean Graziosi. I mean, it could have been any of the people that I've gone to seminars to see, because I do think that you always need to keep learning. I do think you always need to try to expand and stretch your mind and your abilities. So I really wish I could remember which one I got this story from, because I'd like to give them credit. But anyways, it's about a married couple, a young married couple, and they are deeply in love, and they want to show each other how much they love each other, and he's working all day, and she's home, and she's taking care of things, and again, don't get mad at me. It's the story. I'm not saying women belong at home. We could flip this around. It could be the man staying home. I don't care. The idea is the story. Okay. So after the honeymoon phase is over and real life sets in, and they still love each other. They're still trying to show that they love each other. And so he comes home from work, and she serves him tomato soup. And at first he's like, oh, this is so great. I love this. This is great. And she's thinking, wow, he sees how much I love him. He sees that I love him. And so, it comes back and he gets tomato soup again. And he's like, oh, honey, I really love this soup. And then pretty soon it's like, tomato soup again. And finally she gets upset. She goes, well, what do you mean tomato soup? She goes, I love tomato soup. That's how I show love. Tomato soup is love to me. And he finally just has had enough, and he goes, no, chicken noodle soup is love. I want chicken noodle soup. That's love to me. I grew up on chicken noodle soup. That's love. And she's thinking, well, I grew up on tomato soup. That's love. Well, their perspectives are totally off, because if chicken noodle soup is love to him, then he should get chicken noodle soup. If tomato soup is love to her, then he should give her tomato soup. So we have to understand the perspective of where our spouses might be coming from. What is love to them? What is caring to them? What makes them want to be happy, or help them be happy? Because it's not up to us to make our spouses or partners happy. It's up to us to not make them unhappy, right? We don't want to be a burden on them. We don't want to be a drag on their emotions. But at the same time, it's not up to us to make them happy. But if you love somebody, you're going to do your best to make them happy. So the chicken noodle soup, tomato soup thing is very simple. It's easy to see that, one thought it was love and the other thought chicken noodle was love. So it's just a simple story to show that even in a relationship where you love each other, you could have the wrong perspective. You could have the idea that, maybe you get a gift for somebody and they take it as an insult. We've all heard that don't buy your wife a treadmill for her birthday, and you might be going, wow, she's really getting into this fitness thing. I'm going to get her a new treadmill. And she's thinking, oh, so you think I'm fat? Thanks a lot. So it's kind of those type of perspectives. But if you're really communicating, that won't be an issue because you can explain it. I was really surprised a long time ago when somebody told me that, guys want to be, guys think romance and love should be spontaneous. It should be just, surprise, right? And women don't care if it's planned. So if a woman tells you, hey, I'd like some flowers. And you're like, well, now it's your idea. It doesn't mean anything now because you told me to do it. Well, to her, it still means something, so go get her some flowers, right? So that was kind of surprising to me to learn that. And luckily I learned it when I was a lot younger, so I, kind of pick up on those things now. But our perspectives are very important. They're important to us to protect ourselves. They're important to us to make sure we don't our perspective needs to, make sure we don't let certain entities or people into our lives. We have to have that perspective. Now, we could be wrong and we can give second chances, but usually our first perspective is the one we go off of. So you kind of have to be careful with that. And, my wife and I teach a ladies self-defense program called WAVE, Women Against Violent Encounters. And one of the things I tell the women is, or I ask them first, I say, have you ever known somebody, a guy, that comes into your circle of influence and you just get the creeps by him and you're just like, oh, there's something about that guy? But then everybody around you goes, oh no, he's a nice guy. You just have to give him another chance. And so you let your guard down, and then you find out later that, yeah, he really was a creeper. He really was kind of a bad guy, right? And so what I tell women is that's your women's intuition. Us guys don't have that. We have insight. We have, different things, but I believe women were given that women's intuition to be able to see things that we don't see. I mean, I've had people in my martial arts school that my wife was like, I don't know if that guy should be here at all. And I'm like, well, we can't just kick him out for nothing. And sure enough, by the time I was ready to get rid of them, we found out they were bad guys. They were doing techniques not very well, or not in the right way. They would try to hurt people. They would try to demean people, and they would do it without us really seeing it. Because when you've got a group of 40 people in a room and you're helping everybody out at a time, you get the people that are just there to try to be or think they're better than everybody and try to hurt them, and or inappropriately touching somebody else, and we don't hear about it until we've already kicked them out, and people are like, oh yeah, they'll tell us stuff, and it's like, why didn't you tell us before? We would have got rid of them before. But she's always the one that notices that in people before I do. She sees that before I do. She has women's intuition, and so I always tell women, go with your first instinct. And you can come back and revisit that instinct and that women's intuition. But really, if you get a vibe and you get that feeling, that's your perspective, and it's a protection. So don't worry about that as far as anybody else telling you not to judge that person, because we do have to judge people. And like I said, it's a lot of Christians think judging is a sin, and I think if you're judging somebody else's religious path or relationship with God or whatever, then yeah, that's what I believe the Bible was talking about, is don't judge people in their walk, right? Don't judge what they're doing when you're still doing something. So perspective, judgment, women's intuition, those are things that we're given as protection. It's ingrained in our DNA. We get a feeling, that's why we're attracted to certain people and not attracted to others. You know, you'll have people talk about somebody like they're the greatest person on earth, and then you meet them and you're like, I don't get it. I really don't like that person, right? And so there, we have that because it's our perspective. And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be a jerk about it. That doesn't mean you have to go out and go, well, my perspective is you're a jerk and I don't want you around and don't even look at me again. And you know, that's not what we're putting across here. The judgment is then the perspective, and the judgment, that's for you, for your protection, but it's also for you to, like I said, help others. You know, bring out their potential, bring out their beautiful side. Not always downing them or putting them down, things like that. So anyway, perspective was my thing for today. Now, I could almost go into another topic right now, but I'm not going to. I'm going to stop myself. Like I said, my wife is always keeping me on track. She's not here right now, but if she were, she'd be pointing at her watch, telling me that I've gone long enough. So I'm going to stop it there, and my next one I'll lead from perspective into my next topic, which will be interesting, especially if you've watched my other videos. The next one's going to be kind of interesting because it's a little, well, you'll see. You'll see. All right. So again, I'm Question Mark. I am uncut, uncensored, and unfiltered. I don't use a script. I just go off the cuff. I take a topic and I run with it. So that's who I am. That's what I do. Please subscribe to our channel. Leave your comments. Leave your questions. Maybe one of your questions will be the question mark topic of the day. All right. So don't forget to turn those notifications on so you can see when we have a new video out. And hopefully everybody's doing great out there. And I will talk to you soon. Question mark out.